is the Seahawkers podcast, episode 423. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, joined by my good buddy and Montana Seahawker Adam Emmert.
Well, that wasn't any less depressing a day later and going back and watching it, that's for sure. Still a very depressing loss, Brandon, but I guess we need to talk about it more rather than just me being like, I'm mad and that sucked.
Okay. I held off on this yesterday because everybody was emotional and, down on themselves, and I wanted everybody to have their space. But can we freaking get over it already? Like, all you whiny crybaby shitfaces and we lost to the Rams. What do you freaking expect? This happens every year. We lose to Sean McVay and the Rams twice a year. You should be used to it by now. Get over it. It happens. And I had no more feelings about the loss yesterday. In fact, I felt like it was a lot better because, again, it came down to a field goal at the end. Myers makes a field goal. I feel happy. They miss it. They had the chance, and I'm not super upset. So I'm trying to slot this in terms of where I was more upset. I was more upset about the Bengals game.
Wow. Yeah, not even close for me. And it's mainly because it is the Rams. I'm sick of losing to these guys.
I don't like it either, but I have a callus built up of losses to Sean McVay and the Rams now.
Oh, well, apparently I'm too much of a snowflake when it comes to the Rams then, because, it still bugs me a great deal, especially when you go back and you look and it's like 12:30 to go in the fourth quarter. The Rams get the ball and the Hawks are still up 9. 12:30 left in the fourth. All they had done was score one touchdown at the end of the first half up to that point. And I know I railed a lot on the offense in the recap, and I think rightfully so in a lot of ways, but also, too, man, the defense just fell apart in the fourth, and they have to take some of the blame for this as well.
A little bit. I feel like the defense, by holding a team to 17 points, it was kind of similar to the Bengals game, right? Because they held a good team to a relatively few amount of points. Rams, not necessarily a good team. So, again, I understand why it hurts a little bit and why I held off some of my commentary post-game. It's interesting that we are starting with the defense, and maybe it was because we just got done talking about this yesterday, and maybe we didn't touch on the defense enough. But you went to one of the points where, with me going back and watching some of the game to try and figure out where it really turned, it was that drive in the fourth quarter, and it was the first play on that first drive by the Rams that really stuck with me the most, I think, on the rewatch. And that was because if we go back to that play, and hey, we can do a little bit of 3 and 3 out style on the show since we're not going to be doing 3 and 3 out on a short week. It was that 12:23, 1st and 10, Rams have the ball in their 32. And the way that the Seahawks were in zone, and the reason why I know they were in zone, because all of the Rams players were on the left side of the offense, and the Seahawks at the snap, for some reason, Bobby Wagner tails it to the left. Maybe it was because that was his zone responsibility. Trey Brown is up on the line. He doesn't have anybody to cover because, again, everybody is over on the left side of the offense. And then you also have Witherspoon there. So you have 3 guys covering nobody in all this space on the right side of the offense for Stafford. And he zips it in to a hole to Demarcus Robinson, 23 yards. They hit a big chunk play on 1st and 10, and that helps get the offense moving. Then they're running the football, and they march down the field and score a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good play to bring up. There's a couple other things on that drive that were impactful, but that play itself, for sure, is a good example of what they did in the second half quite a bit. And that is when they really needed it, they targeted the linebackers in coverage over the middle. And they really did exploit that. And anytime they got Bobby out in coverage, that's where they went. And it's because they know, obviously, with him there last year. But things that stood out to me was Witherspoon really kicked off that drive with the suplex in the 15-yarder.
Right after the Witherspoon suplex was Tariq Woolen's interception. So the suplex didn't hurt them at all.
Was that drive? So it was the drive before. I thought those were both on the same drive.
No, it was the first drive of the fourth quarter for the Rams. And immediately after was the the recall and interception.
Yeah, no, you're right there. Okay. I had the sequence wrong in my head there, but yeah, you get them kick-started, and they did. They targeted the linebackers a lot in those situations and were able to move it on down the field. And Stafford started getting cleaner pockets in the fourth quarter. The pass rush kind of melted away a little bit. In the third quarter, they were still getting after him a lot, and he was having to roll around. He took that one shot from, I think it was Mario, and just laid him out on the flea flicker. But just difficult to watch the defense kind of fall apart. And then not only that, but they had multiple times to get off the field, and the refs just weren't having it. I mean, the PI in the end zone, even on rewatch, was just, I mean, that's, I don't even know if I can put that Robinson catch as the one where it's like, okay, this is where the game turned. It really felt like it was that penalty.
It was more of the idea of, in that moment, because you had three players, whether it was Bobby, whether it was Trey Brown, whether it was Witherspoon, they only brought four guys on first down. And that would have been a really good opportunity for one of those guys to come off the edge, or for Witherspoon to shoot the gap once the snap. And because Stafford had all kinds of time on that play.
For sure. And they got cut just covering space. And I think that's, and it wasn't just
Bobby to jump on that too. I think Julian Love was in coverage on that play.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Brooks was, in the area as well, and just tough, but yeah, just defensively, they did fall apart in the pass rush, and the refs didn't help. And, if the offense can get just one of those drives a little more sustaining in the second half, then all of a sudden, it's a win as well. Myers makes field goal. It's a win. Witherspoon doesn't take that penalty in the end zone. That wasn't a penalty. It's a win. If the Seahawks actually play a little cleaner on offense, because you go back and you look at it, and it's sacks and penalties. That in third and shorts, there were 2 third and shorts that they decided to throw the ball, and Locke ended up throwing one deep downfield, and I can't remember what happened on the other one. Oh yeah. Gino was under pressure and then kind of threw it behind Fant. It was nearly a pick. That was just before he got hurt. So those are the places where I would really bang on the coaching, is on those third and shorts, especially with Charbonnet in there and all that. Like, can we just run the freaking football? But the offensive line really deteriorated in the second half, and the sacks really hurt. They killed a couple drives just right out of the gate. And then, to your point in the post game, how do you run the ball when you don't get the first down and you don't get going? And it's the same problems we talked about over and over and over again, along with the red zone problems, man. I mean, they settled for 3 field goals there that they could have ended up with a touchdown anywhere there, and the Rams cashed in on 2 out of 3.
And I think it goes back to that point too, of what type of football team do you want to be? And if you want to be a team that punches other teams in the mouth, especially inferior teams, then doing it through the run game is the way to do it. And through the first half, they racked up enough stats to DK, to Tyler, to Jackson, that I feel like that they could come out then in the second half and then use the tight ends, hand off to Charbonnet, and then pound teams in that third quarter to set it up for the fourth quarter. And they didn't do any of that.
They really didn't. And, the players didn't help with that as well, especially up front. I mean, Forsythe had a rough go there in the second half. He gave up a big sack that killed a drive. And then there was a couple of occasions where, Gino took the sack. He was holding the ball a little too long, but it was basically like first read, getting to the second. Now there's pressure. What are we doing? And ends up taking a sack. But, good news on Gino. It sounds like possibly that they might be available for Thursday, it sounds like. And that would be a huge coup, considering Locke looked a little lackluster when he was out there. Now, a lot of us made the comments, and I'll put myself in that group, right after that game. Well, see, there it is. There's Drew Lock. He stinks. Like, Gino's the guy. This proves it completely. And I don't know that we can say that just based off of getting in there for a couple series. The pick to Lockett was bad in terms of it was just underthrown by 2 yards. He had a step on the guy, and it was a possible completion. The miss to JSN, can you put that on JSN? I don't know. Like, maybe that's the way that Geno has him run it. I have no idea. Maybe that's a mistake, but Locke seemed to think that was on JSN by his reaction. But that's a huge miss there, too. So there were opportunities there, too, and they weren't able to cash in.
I went back and watched that, and I don't know if it had to do with, one, Drew's reaction, and then on top of that, I think it was Matt Ryan in the booth talking about blaming it more on JSN. But Jackson's running down the right hash mark there. If Drew just puts the ball 2 yards closer, I think JSN turns around for the ball about the time that it's arriving. It was just 3 yards too far to his left to where once he turned around, there was no way he was going to be able to reach it.
Yep, that's the way it went. And, and I don't blame Drew, too, for looking a little unprepared. I don't care who you are as a backup quarterback. You could be the best backup quarterback in the league. But when you get behind a guy like Geno, who doesn't miss much time due to injury, it's hard to keep yourself sharp. You really don't expect to play, and especially in that situation, you figure that Geno's going to go the distance. And, if we do end up having to roll with Drew here against the Niners, then, so be it. I think that I'm willing to give him, or not willing, I mean, we'd have to give him the shot, right? But I have confidence in him. I do.
He looked a little bit disappointed that he didn't get to go out there for the final drive. And I suppose you can understand a little bit of disappointment, but
sure.
One other thing that I'll say to the opposite of that is that it was Geno Smith coming in for Russell Wilson and leading the team on a 98-yard drive against the Rams when Russ went out. And so you talk about ways of being prepared and then coming in and performing. We did see that with Geno.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm not going to get too down on Drew. And again, if we do go with Drew against the Niners, I do have confidence in him to play good enough football at the quarterback position to give the team a chance to win. But I do think it does paint a very clear picture about the way that Geno plays and just how consistent he is and how lucky we are to have him as our quarterback. And, judging by the way that injury went down, you don't often get very lucky in terms of the quarterback being okay after a hit to the throwing elbow like that. That's usually a Brock Purdy, now you're having surgery kind of situation. And, just feeling fortunate for that, despite the fact that this loss does make things a lot harder going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's what the report was that we were waiting for, was whether it was a ligament issue or exactly what the nature of Geno's injury was. Sounds like it's a bruise. You hear the word contusion thrown around a lot, which is a fancy word for bruise.
Yeah, and depending on how bad that is, like there is one time at the sawmill, I was up on top of a platform kind of thing, and I jumped down, and it was maybe like 3 feet, 4 feet. And when I came down, there was a metal post to my right that I came down, and my arm was just kind of out in the air, and I smashed my elbow on the top of it. I didn't do any ligament damage. I didn't, break it or anything like that. But man, that arm was pretty well useless for a good week. If it's a real good bruise like that, even if Geno is able to go, it does kind of give you the sense that he's one bad hit away in that game with a good defensive front coming after him from it being Drew Lock time. Like it's going to be sensitive, man. Like honestly, that time that I smashed my elbow that way, it was still sensitive months later. Months.
Oh yeah. And it swells up fast once you have an injury like that. So as soon as something like that happens, then it's going to be tough to move. And the offensive line is going to have to come to play with this 49ers defensive line coming to town. And you would like to see maybe a little bit easier defensive line coming to Seattle with coming off of a game like this, but you got to play who you got to play.
You got to play. And I have high hopes that Abe's going to be back. And with that, I think that does help quite a bit. And the other thing I was thinking about, Brandon, is the last Rams game. We got just whooped in that game and everybody was down. And then we had the big bad Lions coming up and we were all like, we're getting blowed out for sure. We're going to get boat raced, going to get mollywopped. This is going to be terrible. Like, this team wasn't nearly as good as we thought and all that stuff. And they come out and they get a huge win. I'm holding out hope for this team to repeat that sort of performance and take this personal. They need to go full Michael Jordan on this because that should be one that sticks in their craw in a bad way.
Yeah, I feel like after losses, it's like we're here to give other fans like what we have to hope for. And one of the things that I noticed too is that this is a very different team at home this season than most home teams that we've had in the past. Like, I feel like home field advantage hasn't necessarily been much of a thing, but now with the 49ers and on Thanksgiving, I kind of like it.
Yeah. And really, I mean, home field advantage has kind of been dwindling for teams over the years as a whole. I mean, you see the betting lines kind of reflect that as well, right? And I think teams have gotten better at coaching how to play on the road and dealing with the noise and all of that stuff. So I think as a whole, teams are struggling a little bit more at home than they did traditionally. It's not quite the lock it up situation, but having a team like the Niners come to town, like, you want that one to be at home. I'm really glad that in the sequence of the schedule here, that this one is the home game rather than having to go to Santa Clara coming off of this Rams loss. I think that's huge. And I think it can really help them, especially with the short week, being able to be at home and not have to travel. And I'm sure the league did that specifically for that.
Yeah, with the travel, it's at least the closest team within the division. So I don't think for either team, like, travel's that big of a deal. It's, a couple hours and you can just pop up. Shoot, they could probably fly up the same day with it being an evening game. They don't even have to come and stay overnight in the hotel for the Niners, I suppose. But I don't know how they're going to do that either. Anyway, it's not that big of a travel issue, but it's better for the home team because it's a couple extra hours that you don't have to deal with that.
Not only that, you have the 12s with your back, and they're gonna need every one of us out there at Lumen. So if you're going to this game on Thanksgiving, don't talk to your relatives, don't talk to anybody, save your voice during Thanksgiving. Just go to the game and let it all out there. Take one for the team.
That's right. No, if you are going to the game, see, that is your Thanksgiving, and then you delay your Thanksgiving dinner to the next day. That's just how you do it. And then when you're sitting around the table talking about the win that you just got over the Niners, you do it in that, my voice, it's really tough to talk, but I can fight through it because we got the win. It was worth it. I'm so happy we're 7-4. Like, it's so much better than, getting closer to 500 with that loss that we could have potentially had. Yeah, no, that's how you do it. Right. No doubt about it. So 2 Thanksgivings, that's what you're basically advocating. Why not?
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, the only thing I could think of is just deals for shopping, right? Because isn't that Friday like the big day?
Wait till Monday, and they got the Cyber Monday deals too. Shoot, everybody's starting their Thanksgiving deals practically on Monday this week. So I don't think the Friday deals are all that great like they used to be.
Yeah, maybe not. It seems like that stuff starts earlier and earlier all the time. But, one thing about the Niners is they came out of their bye and they started out fast, and they have looked really good the last couple of weeks. And they just put a thumping on the Jags. And, that little bad stretch for Purdy seems to be behind him for the moment. Now, let's hope that just the talent level of Spoon and Woolen and the secondary does make it so that it's a little tougher on him, but they're going to have to really protect those linebackers in coverage because the Niners really do a good job of using those middle of the field concepts to exploit linebackers in coverage. And, that is probably the weakest spot in the defense when it comes to just defending the pass.
I get the sense that there's people listening right now saying that why are you giving anybody hope in this game against the Niners? Have you not watched them these past couple weeks against the Jaguars and against the Browns? They tore them apart. Christian McCaffrey's tearing it up. How do you even think that the Seahawks have an opportunity and a chance to win this game?
Because we're fans, man. Because we're fans, and you got to have some hope. Otherwise, it's no fun being a fan. Like, have some fun with it, too. Like, it is, at the end of the day, it is just football. I mean, even though that's where I put all my irrational feelings and all that, the reason is because it is just a game. It's just a game. And so you might as well have some fun with it. Now, looking at the schedule here, yeah, so you got Niners, Cowboys, Niners, Eagles, right? And then you finish out the year with, what is it? Titans, Pittsburgh, and who do you have the last week? I don't know. It's another
Cardinals.
Cupcake-ish. Cards, yeah. Another cupcake-ish kind of thing. So you got to get to 10 wins to have a chance to get to the playoffs. So let's say you actually get all three of those against the lesser competition at the back end of this stretch here. That means you got to get at least one of these four. And if you're going to get the Niners, I do feel like it's this one, the one at home.
I don't know. Based on the state of the NFC, I think 9 wins probably gets in the playoffs. And but I want to see 10. And I don't know if I'd even consider Pittsburgh a cupcake because they find ways to grind out and beat teams. They're not a cupcake. They find ways to grind teams out.
That is not a real football team. It's not. Offensively, they have zero offense, man. That Matt Canada offense is a joke show.
No, but defensively, they keep their offense in it.
Well, that's fine and dandy and all, but that's gonna come to roost for them. That is a big pretender. They're a lot like the Vikings last year, winning a bunch of close games and then just get boat raced in the playoffs by the freaking Giants of all teams. That's exactly who this Pittsburgh team is. I mean, Kenny Pickett is a less mobile Daniel Jones at this point.
Oh, I'm not saying that their offense is anything stellar. It's just that the defense keeps them in games, and the offense can put together a drive to kick a field goal at the end, and that's generally how they've won their games so far this year. So I wouldn't write them off as a team that's a cupcake, and I mean, they should beat them. I'm just saying it may not be an easy win, or
it just better be a dub. That's all I'm saying. I don't care if it's easy or hard, because you're going to need all three of them.
Well, I want to win against at least one of these Niners games to split against the Niners and even double up. Now, that would be the way to really flip this division, and a way to flip the script that's now been turned on you because you lost 2 freaking games to the Rams. If you can go out and beat the Niners twice in 3 weeks, find a way to do that, then the division is in your control. And when you get then to the end of the season and you have the 2 wins against your division opponent, if it's close, then you've got the home field. They don't. That would be a way to turn it. Now, it's not going to be easy. I mean, the defense for the San Francisco 49ers, they're first in the NFL in points per game. It's under 16 points per game. Seahawks, though, over these last few weeks, I mean, ever since really ever since Witherspoon came to the defensive side of the ball, and hopefully with Jamal Adams, with him having some rest, that he'll be able to play in this game against the Niners. I kind of would have liked him against the Rams because I think any one player probably could have made a difference, whether it was Kenneth Walker going down to injury, whether it was Jamal Adams being on that side of the defense. It was so close that any one player could have made a difference.
Oh, without question. And I feel better about our chances against this Niner team this year than I did last year going into these games. I mean, the moves that they have made this last offseason, they were all aimed at beating the Niners. And so this team is built for this. That's the idea. Now we'll see if they can breathe life into that vision. And if they're going to do it, then they're going to have to put together an actual complete game where they are relatively consistent throughout an entire game rather than putting together just a half.
The thing that's going to make it difficult against the Niners is running the football. And I don't expect Walker to be back with the oblique injury that he sustained. Could be our first opportunity to see Kenny McIntosh and seeing him get at least a few snaps at running back. But the Niners are third in the league in terms of rush defense, yards allowed per game. That's going to make it tough. I feel like attacking them via the air may be the better way to go. And maybe with the way that Waldron's been calling the offense, it might work out in the Seahawks' favor then.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's the place that they do need to attack, because it does feel like their run defense is a little stouter than the back end of their defense. But then you still are in a position where Chase Young, Hargrave, and Bosa are coming after you every time you drop back. And that's quite the trio there for sure.
Right behind them with their linebackers, Fred Warner playing out of his mind. If you can challenge the secondary, though, Javarius Ward playing really well, too. But I think that is more of the area to attack. Greenlaw playing well, too. I mean, it's just a tough overall team. You got all those players on the defensive line to contend with, and you flip over to the offensive line. You know, Trent Williams, it seems like when he's been playing healthy, that's been kind of the key to their offensive line and protecting Brock Purdy. And then also making space for Christian McCaffrey, because really the entire offense runs around Christian McCaffrey and him having success.
Yeah, I think if you're making the defensive game plan, the number one player you're devising for is Christian McCaffrey. There's no doubt about it. And he is the straw that stirs the 49ers drink. As much as I respect Debo, Ayuk is
Kittle.
Yeah, Kittle hasn't been quite as prolific as he has in years past. He's got some mileage on the body and everything, but he's still a damn good player. It seems like Juszczyk always comes up with a player or two that pisses me off. Right. So, yeah, there's a lot of dudes to think about. But, yeah, it kind of starts and stops with McCaffrey. And, it's a little of the situation that we feel like we are supposed to put people in each and every week, where good luck stopping K9 and Charbonnet, and then pick your poison between all the receivers and tight ends, and there's all these weapons, but there are ways to make it difficult on those offenses. And with Purdy, it does feel like, I mean, if you let him just sit back there and pat the ball, it's pretty much over. But if you do get pressure on him, he's mobile. He's just mobile enough to make enough plays. But I would rather take my chances with that than playing coverage a lot of this game and trying to bank on that when it comes to defending the pass.
And Purdy coming off a gem of a game against the Tampa Bay defense, 21-25 for 333 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was sacked 4 times, but perfect quarterback rating. And like you said, in terms of his rushes, only 4 attempts for 14 yards, but it was him coming under pressure and just able to escape and help pick up some of those yards. McCaffrey, not a huge day, but between him and Eli Mitchell, over 100 yards rushing, so they can grind you. And then Ayuk, he hit a bomb down the sideline to Ayuk for a touchdown. And so it isn't just the middle of the field, although that is generally where he has most of his success. If you're not paying attention on the outside, and Ayuk gets behind one of the corners, he can bomb it out there and beat you.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a above average player. I don't think he's great by any stretch, but yeah, he can hurt you, no doubt about it. It's going to be a game where the Seahawks, they can't come out and have another penalty fest. Like, they've had way too many of those this year, and you start putting yourself behind the chains big time against this Niners offense or defense, you're gonna struggle all day. And those third down numbers that have been kind of piss poor all year, you got to hope that they can play above the norm on that. And I don't know. I don't know that that's entirely possible. They haven't proved it yet this year.
I mean, you can run through all the categories, right? Of whether it comes to turnovers, whether it comes to actually converting your scoring opportunities inside the red zone. Like, you have to win all of those against a team like this. And another thing it reminds me of is playing against the Ravens. Like, with the Niners, if you give them a multi-score lead, to where they're up 2 touchdowns, their defense is going to find a way to strangle you.
Oh, without question. So, the Hawks are going to have to come out hot, and they do seem to have better first halves than second. And with being at home and all that, they need to try to get up on the Niners by 2 scores and then try to hold on. That's kind of the way that I see this game going. It's been kind of the way that they've played a lot this year. So we'll see if they can do that. But you're 100% right. If they get boat raced early and are down, 14 plus points in the middle of the second quarter, it could be a really long day.
Well, and the other thing too, with Brock coming to Lumen Field, he has games where he will put the ball into harm's way, and you have to take advantage of those opportunities. And if you go back to the game between the Niners and Bengals, that was at Levi Stadium, but it was Brock Purdy throwing 2 interceptions. The Bengals then able to capitalize on those turnovers. That's one of the ways to put away the Niners then.
You got to capitalize on their mistakes. And Purdy generally throws at least 2-3 highly interceptable balls a game, it feels like, and he gets away with it all the damn time. So we'll see.
He didn't have those against the Bucs, but against, I don't know. He has confidence for sure. So and it has generally worked out for him. But those opportunities sometimes are there. They are.
And we're going to find out who this team is. Are we closer to the Bucs? Like, the performance we just saw from them, or the Jags the week before, or are we closer to the Bengals and the Browns, teams that beat the Niners, which we also beat. So that's something to think about as well. Are we closer to those teams where we can compete with the big boys, and, we get our fair share of the big boys here over the next few weeks?
Yeah. When you look around the rest of the NFC, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, you got the Eagles at 8-1, obviously up there. Lions are 8-2, and we saw the Seahawks hung with them. Cowboys 7-3, they're on the schedule for next week, so we're going to see how they measure up to the Cowboys here shortly. Vikings 6-5, which they're kind of a weird team. I don't know what to think about the Vikings necessarily with their quarterback issues, but they couldn't get it done against the Broncos. They have the potential, I think, to maybe slide back a little bit. I'm trying to look in the NFC and find a team that could actually make a run. I don't think the Falcons could do it. I don't think the Bucs could do it. They're both at 4-6. The Rams are at 4-6. Packers are at 4-6. Commanders at 4-7. Like, outside, I feel like the playoff teams are kind of they've already shown themselves, but it is a tough stretch of games for the Seahawks over the next few weeks. I don't know which team it could be that would really make a run. Maybe you could argue the Rams and be concerned about them because they do have the 2 wins over Seattle, but I don't know, man.
Yeah. I mean, the window is still wide open. It's not like the season's over after that loss, but they want to get on a winning streak here.
It's over. We need to start cheering for draft picks. It's the time of the year that it's more fun to root for draft position than playoff position.
Yeah. If you're used to losing franchise, for sure, I could see how you'd think that way. But I think that there's a team that we can take a little bit of a lesson from in terms of being competitive with some of the top tier teams in their conference when it looks like that their offense has been disjointed for, a good season and a half here. And it's the Denver Broncos. They've beaten the Chiefs. They've beaten the Bills, and they just beat the Vikings. And who else did they beat in that stretch? I think it was the Packers. Okay. So not a huge team there, but 2 good teams in the Chiefs and the Bills. And then, however you want to view the Vikings, and they've been doing it by running the football early and often in their play sequencing. And you see, that's what Sean Payton decided to do. He's like, well, screw it. We'll just run the ball. We'll get ourselves in favorable positions, and we'll grind these wins out and take advantage of things in the fourth quarter by keeping the game close. And that is Pete Carroll football. And it's working in Denver. So I just hope that Waldron notices that, and even when getting lesser quarterback play out of somebody like Russ, even though he's having a pretty decent year.
It's been better. It's felt more Russ-like, and I think it's because maybe he isn't confining himself to the pocket and trying to be that pocket quarterback, allowing him to get himself out and make some of the magic that we're used to seeing happen. I want to get to the Shane Waldron stuff. And before we do, I forgot to mention off the top of the show, Jason in our Ring of Honor group on Facebook, he did take the blame for this loss. He said, "This one's on me, guys. I forgot to put the Seahawks flag out with my son, so I did it by myself at halftime. I'll do better on Thursday. Go Hawks.
Yeah, see, it was right at halftime when it all started falling apart. So, yeah, that all lines up right there for sure. But
get your son out there and you do it together, Jason.
Yeah, geez Louise. But at the end of the day, I think that in this particular game, I think we have to put majority of it on Waldron and then some on execution as well.
And some of it can go to Pete Carroll. Some of it can go to penalties. And we did hear it was kind of an interesting argument between folks in the Seahawks community, whether or not it was a coaching issue as to the penalties or the players themselves an issue. And it's interesting of where you place some of the accountability on that. And hearing from Pete Carroll after the game, he, of course, put it on himself. And part of it is a coaching issue in the way that because he wants his players to go right up to that edge of playing tough and physical and to where they don't get called to, that borderline. And one of the reasons why we've seen it be an issue for teams for really Pete Carroll's entire tenure.
Absolutely. Discipline is a coaching thing. That is not a player's thing. And you can tell the teams that play for hard disciplinarians because they often are not very often penalized. And Coach Pete, he does his thing, and it's hard to argue with the results because you do want them playing free and fast and support them in their individuality and all that stuff. But I think at least this week, I imagine that that's going to be something that he's harping on quite a bit.
Well, it sounded like they harped on it last week. He said he stopped practice on a Wednesday to talk about it, and then he actually brought that moment back at halftime in the game against the Rams and drove it home even more. And then he said it didn't really work. But I don't know what you do as a coach when you coach a team that way and then you make that an emphasis and then it doesn't work. Like if you're not a disciplinarian in that way, what do? You just have to continue to focus on it as a focal point, I guess.
But there comes a point when just talking about it is something that needs to change, right? Like you can't just sit and be like, well, we talked about it and they still did it. And it's like, okay, well, how did you practice it? Like if you have somebody in practice with a boneheaded penalty, like, I don't know, getting your hands into the face of a receiver for no reason on the backside of a play, which extends a drive, which then helps you lose the game, Tariq Woolen. And he still was like in his presser too. This annoyed me. And his presser is like, yeah, no, that was a terrible call. Like how in the world could they call that? It was only an inch off of where I should be. Dude, you had your hand directly in his mug. Like just take responsibility for it. And so when you see somebody like, I don't know, any player, let's say it was Reek in practice, do something like that. It's time to run gassers. It's time to, take him up in front of the team and embarrass him a little bit or whatever it is that you need to do. Like, that's what you do. You can't just sit and talk about it. You have to make it a part of what you're practicing.
Yeah, I just don't know if Pete Carroll is necessarily a guy to do that. And I think that's what causes some of the frustration of, oh, well, we lost to the Rams again, so now we have to fire somebody. And so who do you fire? Do you fire Pete Carroll? Do you fire Shane Waldron? You got to fire somebody, right? Because it's the middle of the season right. And you can't keep doing things the same way. So somebody has to be fired.
Oh, yeah. Make massive changes in the middle of a football season. And it's
the Bills did it. They fired their offensive coordinator. They're doing something.
Sure. Yeah, they did. And that's been a couple seasons of suck for them on the offensive side of the football. And some people might argue that for the Seahawks as well. But I don't think that it's not in Pete Carroll's nature to add that sort of instability into the franchise at this point in a year. I just don't see it. And secondly, there's some things that Waldron's doing that is really good. And they have stretches that are really good. So it's a matter of just piecing that together. I'm not in the fire Waldron camp. I'm in can somebody hit him with a 2x4 and be like, run the damn football? Like that's it. We just need to get that into his head a little bit more. That really is all the change that needs to be done. He doesn't need to lose his job at this point.
Chris Farnsworth at Chris Farnswar 14 out on social media says, aside from the horrendous officiating, Seattle needs to use the middle of the field. On Locke's pick, JSN is wide open over the middle. Our quarterbacks aren't using the middle of the field. Everything is towards the numbers. On 3rd and short, here's a novel idea. Run the catfishing ball for 2 or 3 yards. On 3rd and 7 or longer, push the ball down the field. I'm sick of give-up plays. We essentially are playing 3-down football while every other team plays 4 downs. If our offense continues to play like this, our team will not make the playoffs because the defense will be too damn tired to stop a nosebleed by the time the fourth quarter rolls around. This is the first Seahawks game I've ever actually turned off and walked away from because of everything I'm seeing. The refs plus our ballless offense killing our defense's endurance and costing our team a legit good season and chance to make noise in the playoffs. If this is the team that shows up the next 4 weeks, our team will be 6-7 and dangling onto playoff hope instead of in charge of our own destiny. If you think I'm wrong, please tell me why. From Chris.
It's certainly a possibility. It's in range, Chris. It is. And I think sometimes for football teams, and the Seahawks have been this way a lot throughout the Pete Carroll era, that you get to that point in the season where the rubber meets the road and you see them elevate their play. And I would say that's the one thing that I would hold some hope onto, is that generally in these situations, they do seem to up their game and play better football. Now, is that enough to beat the Niners twice or even once? I'm not sure, but we're about to find out. And, you know, some things about this next 4 games that I think is, I guess, a little relieving and maybe takes some of the stress out of it is that these are legit, really hard football games. And so I'm not coming into it being like, yeah, we should win this freaking football game like I did against the Rams. We should win that game. They are the superior team. So I'm hoping that maybe just the expectations being lowered, I'll just be like, well, whatever happens, happens, and maybe not be as upset as I was. That's been a minute since I'd been that upset.
I mean, I was bummed too. It just, the one thing I think I would push back on where I think Chris would be wrong with this last game specifically. I don't think he's wrong in terms of, you know, defense and defensive endurance being an issue, but I didn't see endurance on the defense necessarily being an issue in this last game against the Rams. I mean, you know, they had 67 snaps on defense and Seahawks 1 time of possession on offense. So I don't think any of the issues that we saw defensively were because they were gassed. I mean, the Reek Woolen penalty, which was legit and extended a 3rd and 15 drive, was a big part of where they could have gotten off the field. I mentioned the one play just where, you know, giving up big plays early, it kind of helps continue the drive. So yeah, really up until the fourth quarter, the defense hadn't been on the field a ton. It really, where the Rams made up a lot of that time of possession difference was within the fourth quarter. I bet they probably had at least 10 of the 15 minutes in the fourth quarter alone. Yeah.
And they did it by converting some 3rd downs in the running game. There was a 3rd and short. I want to say it was on the field goal drive, and they had them stopped. And then just the massive humans ended up pushing them forward for the 1st down, and they continue on and drain some more clock and make things harder. And it turned out how it turned out. So yeah, the offense needed to help the defense out just a little bit there in the second half. It didn't even need to be that freaking much. It really didn't.
No, well, more because they went, 3 and out 3 straight times, starting with the end of the 3rd quarter where Geno got injured on 1st down. And then, the next 2 sequences, they were 3 and out. And part of it is because it baffles me. And maybe this is where we talk a little bit more Shane Waldron, but that they didn't run the ball more when Drew Lock came in. Like, they handed it off. Yeah. They got a yard and they're like, well, that didn't work. I guess we better start throwing. And I guess on that 2nd and 6 after a short pass to Fant, they did go for 3. But again, then it was 3rd and 3. And what do? They run a long developing play with no outlet on 3rd and 3. They're looking to push it downfield deep. And that was a weird sequence too.
Yeah, I'm tired of pushing the ball deep on 3rd and short. I can't say that more emphatically, man. Just freaking over it.
So that was one other thing that I would say to maybe give a little bit of grace to Drew Lock. Like, if we're saying that Shane Waldron isn't great at adjusting situationally, which is one of the themes that I think that we've hit on in some of the losses, then you can't be too hard on Drew for not being able to come in and have success. Because if you have a coordinator that can't adjust situationally, here's a new situation with a new quarterback, and you're kind of playing how you maybe have intended to play the game with Geno.
He's certainly been out coached for 2 second halves by Sean McVay and crew. No doubt about it. And the halftime adjustments have not been good on really the offensive side of the ball, and a little bit on the defense as well.
And I'm with you too on the firing part of Shane Waldron, because I think of it too. Like, there's aspects of every job that are difficult to work through. Like, everybody has things in their own personal job that it's hard, and it takes like significant work to improve those things. And if you look at some of the other things that Waldron seems to do really well, and I think you have opportunity for growth and improvement. So I would prefer to see that.
You and me both, brother. And let's hope that he takes it personal, and this game against the Niners is kind of a showing out party for Shane Waldron and his creativity. Maybe they've been holding on to some stuff. Who knows?
All right. Well, we were all over the map in terms of covering the Rams game, looking ahead to the Niners game.
It's a short week.
Adam, what do you say we get to the second half of the show?
Sure.
Getting into the second half of the show, there is one topic from the Rams game that I did save for the second half here, and I don't know how consequential it was, if it was at all, but in our post-game show, someone mentioned that Geno at the podium was having communication issues at the play where they got up to the line, they snapped it, and they were getting a couple extra run yards. I don't know if it was a communication issue or if they just didn't send a play to him based on some of the comments that I heard.
Because based on what Geno said, is that his headset flat didn't work for one play and one play only. And it happened to be that moment right there, which I like a good conspiracy as much as the next guy. And I do kind of believe in the Ramspiracy, man. I do. Like, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that on the road in the Rams house. And can I say one thing as we go through this? Do they all have Alzheimer's or dementia or something? Like, they all seem to be very confused whose house they're in at all times. They're always being asked, whose house? Whose house? Whose house are we in?
They must always ask whose house it is.
Yeah. They're out on a silver alert and like stumbled into somebody's living room, and they're like, whose house? Yeah.
That reminds me of there's an episode of The Simpsons where Ralph is over at the Simpsons house and he asks Lisa, is this my house? And she says, no, Ralph, you live in a different house.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Rams are Ralph Wiggum from The Simpsons.
There you go. They're very confused as to who lives where, apparently need to be reminded at all times. But yeah, man, I think that is fishy. I think it's super fishy. And there's nothing you can tell me to make me believe that isn't what happened, and that JFK was killed by 7 people, and like MK Ultra was not only real but had time portals to other dimensions or something.
Yeah, well, some of these things may or may not be true, but it was more of
none of them are true.
I was covering all my bases. We don't have to get into which ones are true and which ones aren't.
Yeah, that's true, because who really knows?
Sometimes it's fun to believe in things.
Except for this one. I know on this one. This is a Ramspiracy all the way.
It was Pete Carroll's comments afterward to where he made it sound more like there was, I can't remember what his actual quote was. I probably should have clipped it for the show, but he made it sound like there was crosstalk and there was never actually a play that got to him. So I got more of the sense that this is something that they had practiced. So Geno decided to run it because there wasn't a play that had come in. And I also kind of wonder if they didn't send in a play because they expected Geno just to spike the ball there. But again, who knows?
Yeah. So Geno also said, he's like, yeah, when you watch the tape, you'll understand even more. And I think he got a look that he thought that they were going to be able to catch him off guard with that run and end up being much closer without risking taking a sack and knocking you out of range in that moment. I've heard a lot of consternation about that sequence of events and like, oh, they should have spiked it. They should have dropped back again and thrown it further downfield and got a little closer for Miles. And it's like, maybe the offensive line was not protecting well in the second half. And all it takes is one sack and then it's game over. You didn't even have the shot of Myers kicking the field goal.
Right. And who knows, even if you take a shot over the middle again, if you're able to then get down there, spike the ball in time to get the field goal off. So it's that part of me. That's why I saved it for the second half, because I don't think that sequence was consequential necessarily in the outcome of the game, because again, we'd seen Myers. Would he have made that from 52 instead of 55? I don't know.
A little hard telling, not knowing. I mean, he probably has a much better shot at 45, no doubt about it. But with that said, there's a risk reward aspect there. You believe in your kicker. 55 is in range. Now, I don't blame Myers for missing that in many ways, just because it is a super long one, little bit of a fire drill getting out there, all that stuff. I mean, come on.
Well, they did ice him too. He had some time to think about it since McVay took the timeout.
I don't think that had any difference to do with it. I listened to Myers' presser, and he's like, it's an indoor stadium, but the wind rips around in there. You wouldn't expect it, but it does. So I knew I had to drive it, and that presents its own challenges and that sort of thing. And he's like, I really do feel like I gave it my best stroke. Like he felt like he had hit it. And
the Rams chipped the football, which is why it had that weird movement on it. So, you know, if you really want to get into the conspiracies, well, they cut out Gino's headset right in that moment, and then they chipped the football just in case. So that way they could, you know, make it all wobbly and dive it right before it got to the field goal post.
That's exactly right. For sure they did. Goodell's in on it too. Starts at the top.
I don't know why that the NFL wants us to be in 6th or 7th position going into the playoffs, but that's what we got to deal with this year.
I don't know. Apparently we just make for good drama.
Well, it is the good drama that our members of the flock are here for. We want to avoid some of the drama by thanking our executive producers each and every week, because we do appreciate what they help provide to the show. DCH, Rebecca Christensen, Brian Shaw, JC Schilling, and Jake Burdine. Thank you. And a happy Thanksgiving this week to all of our flockers.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Best holiday of the year coming up here. This is going to be fun. We get Seahawks football. We get to have all the goodies of Thanksgiving. And I think Britt's looking forward to cooking up a nice Thanksgiving meal in the wood-fired cook stove. So we're excited about that. And I think it's going to be win or lose or draw. I'm going to try to make it a fun day and not get as upset as maybe I was 24 hours ago.
Well, we'll see where this all takes us this Thanksgiving Day. I know some of us do have to reschedule our family stuff to make sure that we can all watch a Thanksgiving Day game. My wife was not aware of the fact that our Seahawks are playing on Thanksgiving. So, we had to work around that. So if you haven't already mentioned to your family, they may not be the Seahawks fan that you are, and you may want to give them a heads up and say, there is a Seahawks game in the evening. We might want to make sure we're watching.
I'm just saying I'm going to have to be sitting down at a certain time on Thanksgiving. Like, whether that's pre or, post dinner, I don't much care. Watching the game pre-dinner may call for some challenges especially if you're, anywhere east of Washington State. Okay. Well, that's true, I suppose. What time is kickoff? I guess I haven't even looked. 5:30 Pacific time. Oh, okay. So early dinner time. But if you wait until after, you're looking at, 9:00 dinner. Yeah. Or you could time it real well so that way everybody is eating at halftime, and then, you just work it however you need to for your particular situation. We just all know what the priority is, right? So just to make sure that the football game is on, the family knows the football game is on. Right. You just got to give them a heads up just in case. Absolutely. Daniel Dymock came in with 1950 Australian. Welcome to our Ring of Honor. And he says, to Brandon and Adam, I've been a freeloader extending past the usual 2 years for around 4 to 5 years.
I have finally subscribed to the I'm a Little Flocker and can't wait to support and interact with the Seahawks community. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and the first NFL game I watched was the Seahawks beating the Packers in the NFC Championship game. I am currently in the USA doing somewhat of a Seahawk tour. Currently, I am in enemy territory around these fake Niner fans in San Francisco. Soon I leave for Seattle, and we'll be watching the Thanksgiving game and then the following game in Dallas. Would love to meet the community if there is a meetup on the week prior to the Thanksgiving game. If not, I'll be there with all my Seahawks support anyway. Love the content you provide week in and week out. Catfish the Niners, Cards and Rams. Go Hawks.
I appreciate that a ton, Daniel. That's awesome. Sounds like a cool trip,
right?
Like that's going to be a lot of fun. He's going all over the place. All of our folks in Australia, man, they really do make a lot of sacrifices to be Seahawks fans, right? Like just the time zones and, trying to watch a game. I know it's tough on people. So I think having Daniel there in the stadium at Lumen, that's our lucky charm. He's our win. He brought the win from Australia, brought it from down under.
Yes. Every time that we've designated somebody an official member of the flock representative at a Seahawks home game, the Seahawks have won. So Daniel, you're it this week.
Yeah. Congratulations. And thank you.
Also a welcome to the flock to some of our recent YouTube subscribers. Steven Rasmussen, who I announced last week, who actually came in on both via getintheflock.com, also subscribed and joined via the YouTube channel. Also a welcome to the flock to Mitch and Bobby Cat 123.
Yeah, appreciate you guys, man. Those are, I remember all three of them from one of our more recent live shows and being involved in the comments and everything and the chat. And it's awesome that you guys found it, that we actually had earned your subscription. So thank you for that.
Also a thanks to our buddy Garen, who somebody showed up and took advantage of the Little Flocker discount by arriving at Guaranteed Barbecue, the food trailer in Kellogg, Idaho. They mentioned the Little Flockers discount. Garen gave him the 12% off the order. And thanks to Garen for taking care of us when we've gone through there.
Heck yeah, man. It was David Sanborn from Lewiston.
That's right.
But not from Clarkston. Don't get it confused. Those are two very different towns.
So thanks to everybody who is getting into the flock. You can go to getintheflock.com. Adam, Black Friday special for those people who get into the flock. Double the Hawkra. You will get double the Hawkra if you get in the flock this week. And we might need it against the Niners.
Does that mean that you play the Hawkra cleansed sounder twice in a row? Is that how you get double the Hawkra?
Or just it's that much more of an emphasis on the one play that it doubles up.
Hawkra cleansed.
Didn't you feel it? Didn't you feel twice the power behind that?
Twice? No, I felt 4 times the power, dude. That was powerful.
Quad Hawkra. We'll double
quad
the double.
Hawkra.
We'll do Quad Hawkra Black Friday special.
Man, we're just giving it away now.
Once a year. Once you can do that once you're going out of the red and into the black as part of Black Friday.
You betcha.
All right, folks who are leading the Pick'em League standings. We've got Are You Not Centertained with 110 points. After week 11, we are still short of the Monday night game, so there could be some movement here. But going into the top 5, you got Can You Digs It with 109 points, along with Great Balls of Fire, the Tram Rammers. And we've got Holy Catfish and Love to Wags My Dixon at 108 points.
Dang, that's pretty good. I feel like I had a good week this last week.
Maybe.
That's just a feeling. Just a feeling.
You did. You got 9, and most people were around 10 or 11.
So below average. I didn't have a good week.
You were top half of the league.
Below average. All right. That's fine.
Folks who were in the top 4 going into Monday night's game: Hawk for Life, Liam Carey Eves, Spanking the Kitty, and Preseason Darling. So there may be a tiebreaker situation with all 4 teams tied at 11 picks correct. But we'll have to sort that out then after the Monday night game. We are recording on Monday. with the short week. And we got to find a way to get as much content out to you with the short week.
Yeah, some Monday drama.
It also makes our picks a little more interesting, right? Because we've got 3 games, not just the Seahawks and the Niners, but we got things kicking off with Packers at the Lions.
Detroit.
With this one. Detroit.
Yeah. Yep.
Commanders at Cowboys.
Oh, gosh, they always play each other tough. I don't know. I'll go Cowboys.
Okay, so 3 home team victories. Every home team getting the win on Thanksgiving.
That's right.
Feels right.
Or the Cowboys lose, and that would make me happy.
Then on Friday, we got a Friday game this week instead of the Thursday night prime game. Dolphins at Jets.
Interesting. Okay. Zach Wilson, now the 3rd stringer. He's been demoted. So I think it sounds like it's Tim Boyle time. I am going to take the Dolphins.
Jets got to do something. Sunday, moving on. Saints at Falcons. The battle for the NFC South supremacy.
Oh, the less than mediocre bowl. All right. I'm going to go Saints, I guess.
Steelers at Bengals.
Bengals. And that's without Joe Burrow, and I feel confident in that.
Burrow out for the rest of the season. That's a bummer for them.
Yeah. How many teams are without their quarterback here? Like, there's been a ton of injuries this year. No doubt about it. That's why I feel so lucky about how things are going here with Geno.
Lucky in a way. I mean, he did get hurt, so hopefully.
Yeah, but not like we're not going to see him till after surgery next year hurt. Yeah. He got hurt. He didn't get injured. There's a big difference.
Got a battle of 2 young quarterbacks and Jaguars at Texans.
Ooh. Boy, Texans have been hot. The Jags are so up now. I'll go with the Texans here.
Going with the Texans. All right. We got Bucks at Colts.
I like the Bucks.
Another mediocre bowl there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the percentages yet, so we don't know if any of these will be risk picks either. But I don't know. I think you'll probably be able to. I don't know. Where are you going to find one in some of these? Like, a lot of these are just bad teams, like Patriots at Giants.
Oh, boy. I'm going to take Patriots.
Good. Way to end that with a question. And I don't even know if you can say that that's the worst game of the week, because there's also Panthers at Titans.
Oh, that's the toilet bowl right there. That's the one. I'm going to go Panthers. The Titans are legit terrible.
From the toilet bowl to the toilet bowl in my heart, Rams at Cardinals.
I misspoke. You're right. This is the toilet bowl. I'm going to go with the Cards just because Kyler's been playing okay, and the Rams, they usually get way up for us and then have a letdown.
And as we're looking for 2:00 games on Sunday to watch, this one might be a candidate. Browns at Broncos.
Ooh, that's a fun game. DTR against Russ. Yeah, I'm going to go with Russ and the Broncos here. I think they hate draft picks.
I don't know. I hear Ollie in the background. Is that him doing his dog pound chant?
That's exactly right.
Is he a Browns fan?
No, he is a football fan, though. I gave him a junior-sized football the other day, and it is now his favorite toy because he does love, since everything is on a hill here, he does love the way that the ball bounces weird ways. He just throws it up the hill and then chases it around. It's kind of fun. He's ready for game day. His ball security, he needs to work on his ball security, though. Like, I've punched out a few fumbles.
Oh, yeah. You should be better at that.
Yeah.
Dogs have the teeth. They should be able to grip the football well.
You would think so. It's not even inflated all the way. Like, you think he'd be able to hold that pretty easy, but.
Chiefs at Raiders.
Chiefs.
And then closing out the 2 p.m.
I need a risk pick. I'll take Raiders.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is there might be a risk pick in this next one too that you may want to go with as we close out the 2 p.m. slate. Bills at Eagles. I have a feeling that based on where the Bills are, that could be a risk pick against the Eagles.
I doubt that it is. I bet you it's just above risk pick. But I am going to take the Bills. They looked a lot better post Ken Dorsey this last game. I know it was against the Jets and all that, but The Eagles defense not as dominant as it was in years past here. And I think the Bills come away with the victory here.
Okay, well, I may be wrong about risk pick territory for the Bills. I think the Chargers are in risk pick territory with the Ravens coming into LA.
Yeah, I would imagine that they are. And that's a game you could tell me anybody wins that game, because the Ravens just have these clunkers now and then where you're just like, where did that come from? And the Chargers are the masters at finding ways to lose. I'll go with the Ravens.
If I can think of any other team that I would not want to be a fan of just in terms of my own mental health, it must be infuriating to be a Chargers fan.
Oh, God. It would have to be just the most brutal. No doubt about it.
It would be like watching the Seahawks play the Rams every week.
Yeah, pretty much. Your defensive coach stinks at defense right now.
Yeah, Ravens definitely a way to go there. And then closing it out, Monday Night Football, Bears at Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going with the Dobbs.
Okay.
Going Vikings.
I thought that the Broncos had a good plan as to how to handle Dobbs, so we'll see if any other teams pick that up or can actually execute that as well as the Broncos did.
Yeah.
Not letting Dobbs get outside and beat him.
Yeah, that'd be a good place to start. No doubt about it.
All right. What do you say we get into some do better and better at life?
I mean, we can. My do better this week is for me because I don't have a do better. This came too fast and I didn't prepare. So, yeah, it's on me. I need to do better.
Well, maybe I can give you a clue with mine, because I also, on the short week, I just picked something that I probably would have talked about with Clinton on 3 in 3 out. And I went into the game and I said, with this being a game where penalties was an impactful issue, I focused my do better on Julian Love, because of all the penalties in this last game against the Rams. I thought his pass interference call that allowed the Rams to flip the field was the most egregious of all the penalties. And he panicked and he didn't even need to. It would have fallen incomplete. Julian Love, do better.
You're right. He earned that one for sure. Yeah, I can't believe we didn't talk about that earlier in this show or even in the post-game recap, because you're right. That was a big play.
And a big reason why the Rams were able to get 7 early on. So, all right. So you must do better yourself. Julian Love must do better in terms of the penalties, especially if we're going to see him out in coverage more. But do we close this out? Who you got for better at life? Am I closing this out with my solo better at life?
No, I got a better at life. My better at life is for Gino Bernard Smith. I don't know if his middle name's Bernard, but it feels right. And I just think that him coming back in the game and leading us down the field to have the attempt at the field goal was one of the guttier things that I have seen out of a quarterback in a good long time. And that's what you want out of your QB. And that should prove to you, if you're very much a Gino denier, just how tough he is, how much he cares about winning. And I'm just thrilled that he's our quarterback. I think he's the exact right guy for the job this year. So Gino Bernard Smith, better at life than Skip Bayless.
You know, it's funny we use the full name of Russell Wilson so often. We haven't done that so much with Gino. Eugene Cyril Smith III.
Ooh, it's Cyril.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So really, you're not that far off with Bernard.
What's fun about that is that opens up some Archer jokes. So we're going to have to play with that more as the season goes on.
Well, my better at life this week, I'm also going with a member of the Seahawks. I am giving it to Artie Burns, because I loved the heads up play from Artie Burns when DJ Dallas got hit trying to field the punt. The Rams did get flagged for that, but Artie Burns, not only did he recover the fumble, but before he did that, he actually pushed the Rams defender who was there in coverage out of the way, blocked him out of the way so he could jump on the ball. It didn't even matter because it was a flagged penalty, but I love the heads up play by Artie Burns. He is my better at life than Skip Bayless. I
like it because it could have been consequential. And yeah, thank you to Artie Burns for being heads up like that in a big moment. That you're right. That was a good play by him, even if it didn't ultimately count for anything.
And we might see more Kobe Bryant. So coming in this week, well, it's Jarek Reed. Sounds like he's legit hurt. And so, we'll need somebody to come up and play safety now and then, maybe a couple plays, or at least play on special teams. So Kobe Bryant can come in and take over the Jarek Reed spot.
Okay, that's fine. As long as he plays on defenses exactly as much as Jarek Reed, I'm good with it.
I feel like it's a fine trade-off, right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I might be ready to start Kobe Bryant, just play him off the edge instead of Frank Clark.
He did on the touchdown run on the goal line after the pass interference. They stuffed him on 1st and goal. Brooks made a hell of a hit on the running back. And then the second play, they run to the right side of the line offensively. And Frank Clark was there. He just somehow got spun around and just turned his back to the play. And then he spins around again and the dude's in the end zone. He was right there.
He was right there. Yeah. So many things that you could dissect from this game and get upset about. And then we finally made it full circle by the end of the show.
That's right. I didn't even yell.
Well, you got a lot of that out in the post game.
I did. It had to happen. I mean, part of it too is how many times do we come on and we're like, that loss isn't the end of the world. It's going to be okay. Like the Bengals game, or
right.
You can go down the list. Right. And we're like, dang, that's a bummer, but we'll be all right. And then people are losing their minds over those losses. And it's like, all right, we're not poo-pooing every loss as being insignificant. It's not a big deal. Sometimes they are a big deal. And so I thought maybe it was time to bust that out.
You did it. We got there. And hopefully it's the last time this season. Let's go on a run. Let's close out these next few weeks to where we're not yelling about our teams with close losses. No, we are getting wins week after week, and let's get it started on Thanksgiving.
Heck yeah, man. I'm looking forward to yelling my face off in the post game because we're so excited for the win and to complete a perfect Thanksgiving. That's what I'm looking forward to.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.